right, guys, welcome to our show today. We're really super excited to have our guest today. We're actually in his shop at the moment in Bend, Oregon. Super excited to be here. We're with Ben Palmer. He's definitely the guy who knows anything and everything about international trucks with 406 Garage. Welcome to our show.
Appreciate it, guys. Really glad to have you guys here in my shop for your show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kind of role reversal.
It is.
Yeah, we don't have a home yet, so can we just we just need to be here.
Apartment up there.
We're
Okay,
just wandering around everybody's shops.
Can be
I
the
think what we're
Yankum
doing.
Ropes Airbnb up there. Or
Yeah,
something.
you go.
that's
There
fantastic.
you go.
How did you get into YouTube, and how did you get into international trucks?
Okay, so that's a really totally different things.
I know,
So
yeah.
so the international truck started when I was a little kid. So my grandpa, my father's father, my grandpa, he was a truck driver, and he had a international travel, 71 international travel. And that was the rig that, as a family, we would travel everywhere in. When I was little, we're talking like diapers little. Like, and we lived over in, we're on the dry side over here in the high desert side. We lived over on the wet side in the valley, the Willamette Valley area outside of Portland over there. And before I lived here, when I was a kid, we used to come over here for camping, and fishing, and hunting, and family trips every year. Well, we would drive the Travelall. My grandpa had a car top boat, and then you guys may or may not be old enough to remember what a car top boat is. You used to have two racks on top, like nowadays you see the Yakima bar racks, but those racks had rollers. And you would put the boat up on top, and you would roll it up there, and then you'd strap it down to the top, and you'd take the two screws off the motor off the back and the bulkhead, and you'd take the 9.5 horse and Johnson motor and throw it in the back of the truck, and then you have the little fuel tank with the pump, deal on it. That was your boat with your oars and stuff. So you'd roll it off there, put it on the ground, put the little wheels on the back, like the little garden tractor wheels, they clamped on. You pick up the front of the boat, walk it down to the water, set it in the water, unhook the wheels, put the motor on, go fishing. So we had that whole setup, and we pulled a 21-foot Shasta little tandem axle camp trailer. So it was the Travelall, the car top boat, the Shasta trailer, the dog, the cooler, and the kitchen sink, the whole freaking deal.
You gotta
right?
see pictures of that if you
Yeah.
come at some
Oh, we
point.
do, and it was wood paneling and the whole deal. And that truck was in the internationals. They had bench seat in the front, and they had buckets, and the buckets had a little like a center console with a buddy seat, and it said no seat, no step on it, but it had a seat belt. So there was 3 seat belts in the front, but it said no step and no seat. So I'd flip the back of the seat down to make it higher because I'm little, and I would sit on top of the folded down seat. So I was up above the dash, put my feet on the part that says no step,
yeah.
and then put the seatbelt on.
Totally safe.
100%. No backrest, no headrest, no nothing, no cross the chest belt, nothing. We were lap belts and dying together, and I'm like 5, right?
No care in the world.
Yeah, I was like, dude, I'm king of the world in this thing with my grandpa. Well, and my grandpa is the reason that I got into cars. My grandpa was mechanically inclined in tools and welding and stuff like that, and he was a truck driver. So he drove back in the day when they used to run those little 3 20-foot triples with a tiny little day cab 2-axle tractor. He ran for a company called TNT Redaway. It was orange and white with a blue stripe, and he ran up and down the West Coast, Seattle, Portland, LA, Sacramento, San Francisco. And he had his 3 million mile, which I still have, his 3 million mile safety award belt buckle. He drove 3 million miles in a spring ride, day cab, no front brake, triple trailer truck up and down the West Coast for like 40 years.
Wow.
So he
Need
was
someone
always,
to do that now. You can't find
dude,
them.
no, absolutely not.
That's
Well, and
like
the trucks are way nicer now. I mean,
Yeah.
they were like Iron Butt Award for those guys. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so my grandpa was always my hero. And tragically, my grandpa passed away when I was 7. So a lot of all that stuff kind of went away for me for many years. Well, my parents kept the Travelall, we kept the car top boat, we kept the camper, the whole deal. And we still kept the tradition of coming over the hills and visiting everybody and camping and fishing. That whole thing went on. And then when I got into my teenage years, I was getting close to driving age, and this is in the 80s. Dates me. I'm a little older. And my dad looks at me, he's like, hey man, this thing gets like 8 or 9 miles a gallon. It costs $300 to $500 every time I take it to the shop to get it fixed. And it weighs like 6,000 pounds. Like unless you want to drive it to high school, we're selling we're just gonna get rid of all of it. And being a teacher, I'm like, yeah, get rid of that old boat anchor. You know, that thing's garbage. Just send it down the road.
Yeah.
I would give anything to have that truck back, because I guarantee it rusted out. It went in a scrapyard. It got crushed or got used for. It does not exist anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just a VIN number, and it's just a plate, and it's just a truck. But like, if I ever had that truck back, it would just be like the greatest gift in the world for me. You know, because now later, it has much more value. So, Dad sold that. It was in the rearview mirror for me, long gone. Finished high school, went to college, got out of college, started in the automotive industry, ended up moving to Montana and lived there. And about 2 or 3 years into living in Montana, I'm an avid picker. I like to go out on the weekends sometimes and go to farms and ranches and go buy old junk, stuff I don't need, but I just like to go do it.
Yeah, it's fun.
And I like old trucks and old cars, old signs. I mean, you can see my shop. There's stuff hanging everywhere.
Oh,
you know?
cool stuff.
Yeah, I like to have stuff. So I was out picking one day, and I was in a little town called Twin Bridges. This is a long story, by the way. And I pull up to this little quickie mart, because I always go in there. You get a soda, you get a corn dog, you get your Snickers, you know, and then you got your road food to go out and drive around for a while and go find stuff. And this is like September, early October, so it's fall. It's starting to get a little cold out. And I roll up to this this mini mart. Now, keep in mind, it's been probably 18 years since I've seen our Travelall, or let alone another Travelall. So it's completely not. It's not in my realm of thought anymore. And I roll up to this quickie mart, and here's this Travelall sitting in front. It's got a blue door, it's got a red fender, it's got a brown hood, it's got a yellow door over here. There's not a straight panel on it. It's got the old Steely wheels with the Buckshot Q78s. I don't know if you remember the Buckshot tires. They're like a mutter from back in the day. They're bias ply.
Yeah.
They're a 36. They were called Buckshot Q78. Had those on it. Mud all up and down the side and like that. 2 blue heelers in it, just barking and yapping. There's all kinds of camping gear. And it's running, because it's Montana. You just pull up to the store and leave it running. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to take it.
Yeah.
No.
Lights are on, heat's on, wipers are going, you know, whatever. And on the roof, there's this massive bull elk that he had just killed, and it was tied down with rope and stuff like that, and it's just bleeding down the side of the truck. He had gutted it, you know, and split it open, but it was still all 4 legs, the head, and everything like that. He just gutted it out, threw it on the roof of the truck, and came down out of the mountain. So I'm looking at this truck, and all of a sudden, all these, you know, these feelings start coming back. I'm getting a little, like, choked up. I'm like, oh, man, it's a Travelall, dude. This thing's so freaking cool. Like, and here comes this guy walking out of the store, and I'm not exaggerating. It's like 6'8", like 350. He's wearing bib overalls. He's bloody from head to toe, covered in mud. He's got a flannel that's ripped and torn and everything like that. He's got a big old bag of chew hanging out in one thing. He's got a 6-pack of Ham's beer in one hand. He's got beef jerky in the other hand.
He's ready to party, man.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, I got my elk. I'm going home. I got my road sodas, you know.
And he's happy.
Oh, he just couldn't be happier.
Yeah.
But he's got a big beard like Jade, but like gruffy and scruffy and tattooed, and like I'm legitimately a little bit nervous, you know. And he walks out, and I'm looking at his truck. I'm like, hey, is this your Travelall? He's like, yeah. I was like, oh, shit. This is going to be bad. And I go, oh, my grandpa used to have one of those. Yeah, that's cool, you know, whatever. And I said, hey, got your elk and stuff like that. And so he puts his beer down, and he puts his beef jerky and stuff like that, and sets it in the car. And I said, well, my name's Ben. And I kind of went out to shake his hand, and he shakes my hand. And I don't know if you guys have ever had this experience with an old guy, but first of all, his hand is huge, right? And the dude is a monster.
You feel like a child.
Well, I felt like a midget, actually.
Like swallowed your hand, right?
Yeah, but that wasn't the big deal. The big deal was, nice. The big deal was he shook my hand, and when he shook my hand, he said, hi, my name is John, but he shook my hand, and then he pulled me right up to like, and I'm only at like his bib button level, right? So he pulls me in, he goes, I'm John, it's nice to meet you. I was like, holy crap, is this man going to kill me? You know what I mean? Literally, like, you don't know. And from that moment on, he was just storytelling at one after the other. This thing's hauled this much wood. I've killed this many elk. I've had this truck up in every place up in the woods here, chained up and winched and strapped and high lift jack. Like, I stood there with him for like over an hour, just telling stories. And so this is before like Facebook Marketplace and so this is like Auto Trader, Craigslist days. I literally go home and I'm like, okay, Craigslist, Auto Trader, I got to find a Travelall. Like this is about 20 years ago.
Gotta have it.
And from that moment on, meeting John in the parking lot, I was like on the hunt for a travel, and then it was like I got to get a pickup, and I want to have a Scout, and I want to like I started reliving this memory of my grandfather and these trips and stuff like that, and it just all kind of clicked, and it was always just a hobby. Like I'd buy one, fix it up a little bit, make it cool, drive it for the summer or whatever, and then flip it, make a couple bucks, and then like buy another one or whatever. I had a regular job, so it was like this is just for fun, and. I worked corporate America in the automotive industry for like 35 years. And at the end of 2018, as many of us remember, a lot of things were changing in the automotive market. And this is like right before COVID. So that not having to do necessarily with COVID, but a lot of things in the market were changing. And what we were doing in the company that I was working at was just not, I just didn't see it going in a way that was going to work for me. It wasn't bad. It wasn't anything against them. It wasn't anything. It wasn't mad. It was just like, this is not what I want.
So what did you do for them? What did you?
I worked for American Expedition Vehicles. I was a vehicle factory, the dealer rep. So I was the guy that dealt with the dealerships and helped do the ordering of the turnkey AEV vehicles. And you guys are familiar with AEV. And so at the end of 2018, it was Christmas time. We're in Detroit for a meeting, so at that, and I just kind of said to my boss, I just like, man, I know we got the model changeover from the JK to the JL. We've got the Gladiator on the horizon, but we basically, as a company, didn't have a product per se to sell for the dealers. We didn't have a turnkey product for 18 to 24 months. So we were going to work for 18 to 24 months without anything to sell, just keep building relations and stuff like that, doing what we're doing. And I traveled a lot. I have at this time, I had two fairly young kids. And every other week I would leave, I'd get on an airplane on Sunday night and I'd leave and I'd come back the next Friday, pick up my kids, have them for a week, drop them off at their mom's, and I'd get on a plane the next Sunday and I'd leave for another week. And every time I'd just go meet my truck, wherever my truck was. I covered 11 western states. I drove an average of 2,000, 2,500 miles a week when I was driving, every other week, so 5,000 miles a month. I just got burnt out. And I was like, you know what? I built this shop as a hobby and place for me to work on my stuff. Like, why can't I just do what I'm doing and like make it into something? Because I knew that like, no matter what, if I couldn't make it into something, I can go get a job. I've been in the automotive industry 35 years. I'll go get a job. May not pay the greatest, but I'll go get another job. If it doesn't work, I'll get another job. If it does work, I can work at home. I can be with my kids. I can see my kids all the time and go to every baseball game, every football game, every concert at school and stuff like that. And I get to work on these cool trucks and feel closer like to my grandpa, Like I feel like I'm back in the day with Grandpa Bob, And so thankfully we started this gig and just me by myself with my kids basically. And everyone really responded and everyone really liked it. And there was people that wanted these internationals and they wanted to tell their stories. And they wanted to share their stories and they wanted to make new stories and stuff and get a vehicle from us so they can go start doing that. And we've grown every year, not a ton, but we grow a little bit every year since we've been doing this. And I'm very blessed to say that I do something I love every day now. I get to be with my kids all the time now and I get to pay the bills. Am I going to get rich? No, don't care. But I'm super happy. And how that led to YouTube that's the second part of your question. Casey and I have been friends forever. Casey Liddell, you guys know him. You guys know him. Casey said to me, he's like, man, you have got like an infinite amount of content out here, all these vehicles. Every vehicle you have out here has like a story or whatever. And I was like, you know what, you're right. He's like, you should just film it and like put it on YouTube so people have it. And so my YouTube channel started not so much as a sales tool or as a broadcast tool, but more of like, I love to be able to tell the story of a rig. Like you guys have walked around with me plenty of times out here and you asked me about a truck. I can tell you the story of everything that's out there, where I got it, who I got it from, what they use it for, what I'm going to do with it, whatever the story is. Well, I thought how cool would it be when I go talk to this guy or this gal, especially if they're the original owner, because a lot of times I actually get to meet the 80-year-old guy that bought it brand new in 1972 or whatever. And he knows every dent and every scratch and every bump and every stain on the seat and, whatever it is. And if I can film that and film that guy and I can tell that story and pass it on to the next person, it's like the soul of the truck. Like that to me is like, that's like the birth certificate. It's like that now I've got the DNA of what this truck actually is. And whoever I sell it to and pass it on to, I can give that to him and I can go, look, dude, here's a video of Jim. I got it from, he passed away last year, but here's the video when I went and got this truck, and here's the whole story of your truck that you just bought, all the way back to when it was brand new. And now, that person, when they sell the truck, because ultimately someday maybe they're going to sell it, maybe they're going to give it to their kid, whatever it is, they've got that story, they've got that soul, they got that burst of it, they can hand that to the next person, that truck can keep living on. Because I always felt bad that like I would get a story, and I would tell the story to somebody, and they'd be like, yeah, that's cool, whatever. Like they believe me that like the story, but like I'm selling them a truck, so I might be selling them a story. Well, now it's like, okay, here's the video, here's the guy, here's where we got it, no BS, like whatever, and then people really resonated with it. They're like, this is so cool that we got the legit story from the horse's mouth, for lack of a better term, right?
Yeah.
From the horse's mouth, we get the story, and we can show that to people. We can be like, yeah, here's our truck, and here's the old guy that bought it brand new. Check this out. Watch this video. This is super cool. He tells the whole story when he used to get firewood, whatever. So that's how the YouTube channel really started, and that's really what we've used it for, is to tell the story. Does it help us to sell trucks and stuff like that? Absolutely, yeah, because
for sure.
it does. But that wasn't, not the premise of it. The premise of it was to be able to pass on all this knowledge and information about each of these vehicles to the next owner, or, as I like to say it, we're all just caretakers.
Right.
Doesn't matter what rig you have. You have a brand new freaking Ram. You're just the caretaker of it for however many years, then you're going to pass it to somebody else. We're not keeping them forever. I mean, everybody's like, yeah, I'm going to get buried in that truck. No, you're not. No, that's cute.
And the drivers know the story better than anybody else because they're part of it.
Exactly. So when you can get that story from that guy who's driven it everywhere and done everything to it, I mean, like I said, to me, that I feel like that's the soul of the vehicle. Because then you're getting everything that goes with it. The maintenance kind of speaks for itself, the condition speaks for itself, but it's like when the guy can tell you where that dent came from and what road it was on and what fence post he hit with it and what day he was there and what girl he was dating at the time. Dude, to me, that's powerful. It's like, that is so cool to know that much about one thing about your pickup, especially because it's been on the road for 50 years.
Yeah.
And that dude still knows what's going on with it, so I don't know.
Well, cars are a major part of our society, of our life, of everything. I mean, they get us to and from work, to the grocery store or whatever, but then also the adventures and everything. And even for people that aren't really into their vehicle or not, it's still very much a part of their life.
Yeah.
But then when it becomes part of your passion, that's just a whole other thing. And then it becomes more of an identity. And then,
absolutely.
And that's how vehicles gain personality.
Right. Like when I saw that Travelall and it was multicolored and covered in mud and blood and this huge dude comes out with blood, I literally was shaking. I'm like, this guy could just kill me.
Yeah.
I mean, based on the way his truck looks and how mean his dogs are, and he's got blood from head to toe, I might just die in this parking lot right here. Yeah. And I hadn't even talked to the guy yet. You know what I mean? So that what you're saying is true. Like your vehicle is a reflection of who you are.
Well, and earlier you were talking about the kind of the service and the quality of work that you do, and I think that comes from your passion and from those stories, right?
Yeah.
Like I can't remember what you were mentioning before. Like every part that you take off, you make sure that you strip it, you paint it. Yeah.
So Kevin is the mechanic who works for me, and Kevin and I a couple years ago sat down and said, we're servicing all these trucks for customers, or maybe we're just buying a truck, we're bringing it in the shop, and we're fixing it up to sell it. We don't have a customer for it yet. Well, when we go to explain to a customer, okay, we service the diffs, we service the transfer case, we did the transmission, then we put new brakes on it, we put new wheels and tires, and we did valve cover gaskets and plugs, wires, carburetor. Well, you can walk around and see what parts we replaced because they're going to be new parts or they're not going to be new parts. But beyond that, it's like they're kind of just taking your word for it.
Yeah.
So what we decided was anything that we take off the trucks, like we take a valve cover off, it's a metal part. We have a sandblast cabinet. We'll blast it, paint it back to factory international red, put the new valve cover gasket on, and then put the valve cover back on. It's like $5 worth of paint. It's like 10 minutes worth of work. But at the same time, for us, it speaks a little bit more quality to what we're doing as far as like, hey, we touched that part. We made it, it's not new, but we made it as good as it could be before we gave it to the customer. We'll service the diffs, and we always check the diffs and the pinions and the backlash and stuff like that. Well, when you service a diff on an old truck, you have to pop the diff cover off to drain all the fluid out. Well, if you're going to pull the diff cover off, you're going to put a new diff seal on. Well, you're going to put a new diff seal, the cover's in your hand. So we sandblast the cover, and we're not powder coating it, but we'll paint it. So we'll paint that, and then we put a new seal on it, and we'll put the diff cover back on, and then put it, tighten the cap, put a little paint bend mark. We tighten the bolt, and we're done. And it just, I feel like I learned a lot of that from AEV and some of the other companies that I work for. Because AEV, when they build vehicles, they tear apart a lot of the truck, and it's a brand new truck. And then they put all their parts on and put it all back together. Well, every nut and bolt that they touch, they pen mark it after they torque it and tighten it. And everything they put on is brand new, painted, powder coated. It's got their names, got their sticker and stuff. So you can look at a new AEV, a brand new Jeep or Ram, if it's been through AEV shop, you can see everything that they did because it's all very well marked. Every suspension component they touched and stuff like that. So we kind of talked about that and was like, man, we can kind of do a similar thing. And this is nothing we didn't invent this, and this is nothing we came up with. This is just something we've observed other shops and other companies doing, and we felt if we implemented that into what we do, people would really appreciate it, and it would just kind of stand apart a little bit more than just a normal shop that's working on old trucks.
It's that extra touch. It's that extra service.
Yeah, it's letting them know that we really care about what we're doing, and we want to make sure it's right before it leaves. And we're not, I've told you guys before, we're not restoring these trucks. We're really, I call it preservation, because we do a lot of the mechanical work and stuff on it. We'll wet sand and polish the paint and have our interior guy do some interior work. But we're not painting them. We're not pulling panels and sending them off to the body shop and have them straightened and primered and etched. And we don't do that. Like I really think it's cool that they still have their original paint on a lot of these trucks, and they show the scars. The patina. Everybody likes to say patina. Yeah. Just it's paint missing is what it is. But patina is the key, the cliche word now, I guess, that everybody likes.
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
What's been your your craziest request from a customer or build? I know you told us about a few.
Man, I mean, there are some people that think that they watch too much TV. So there was a guy, I think it was 2 years ago. He called up, he's from Newark, New Jersey, probably a banker or Wall Street guy or, whatever. Car guy, you could tell he was a car guy, he knew what he was talking about. But he said, hey, I want to go buy this 2018 Ram crew cab, Cummins, Laramie, loaded, diesel truck. And he said, I want to bring it to you guys. I want you to take the body off, and I want you to put a Travelette body on it and Travelette bed. And he said, I want everything to work. Keyless entry, push button start, heated seats, all the computers, traction control. He's like, I want it to be just brand new truck, but I just want you to slide that shell over the top. And I said, okay. And I said, that's going to probably be, $100,000 at least. I go, you're talking like major surgery to make that happen. Yeah. And he's like, well, that's not even reasonable. He's like, I can go to Barrett Jackson and buy one that's all done for like $125, $150. And I said, you should definitely do that. Yeah. Because I really didn't want to do it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he wanted to take a perfectly good, low mileage, virtually brand new truck, skin it, and reskin it with an International, but he wanted everything to work as if it was a brand new Dodge. You could just take it in the dealership and have it serviced. I was like, I mean, can that be done? I see people do. There are shops that can do it, but it's hundreds of thousands of hours, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah, because of the hours. Yeah, and I don't know. I guess I politely said you should just go buy one. So is that the craziest request? Probably. Is it possible? 100%. Yeah. I just didn't really want to dip our toes in it. It just was a little bit outside the box for me. Yeah. Now we've done plenty of modern powertrain swaps and stuff like that in these old trucks, but I use the original body, the original frame. We're still like usually solid axle, spring, leaf spring. We're the soul of the truck that was there before is mostly there. We're just changing the drivetrain so that it's more modern to drive. To me, that's more reasonable. It's also more cost effective. Mm-hmm. There's no sense in. There's no sense. I never should say there's no sense because there's a checkbook for everything. But, yeah, there is. I guess we're just not in. We just don't play in that sandbox, so to speak. Just
to know that your audience is getting bigger, that you're getting crazier and crazier requests. I mean, this space. I mean, we were talking earlier about just the audience that a YouTuber has and what you've been able to do with your audience and show the value in collecting and curating is basically functional art these
Sure.
older rigs, and then preserving that on YouTube and then getting that back to them. I mean, that's a huge service to that audience, that group, that just the whole automotive industry, honestly, because they're not making any more of them.
No, they're 40, 50, 60 years old already, and it's like,
They're slowly disappearing.
gentleman that was here earlier that I was talking to outside, he came to look at a couple trucks, and he's a friend, but he's also a client, future client. He wants to purchase something eventually, and he said, his dad has an '01 Chevy, which is 23 years old,
Yeah.
not that old. He goes, I kind of feel like the '99 to '01 before they went to the cat eye. He goes, that's kind of the last of the vintage Chevy, and it's only 23 years old. He goes, and he's a younger guy. He said, but there's nothing that will ever be like the 60s and 70s. He's like, this stuff out here that you have, he's like, there'll never be an era of trucks and vehicles that's like this. And he goes, and as time goes on, they become more time capsules, because the newer we get, the more doodads and
More
gadgets
stuff that
and
can go
computers,
wrong.
more stuff that can go wrong. And, to say a 2001 Chevy pickup is a classic old truck, right? He's not wrong. But at the same time, like, to me, that's just a brand new truck still, When I think of classic truck, I think of 1975 or 71 or 69 or, whatever. So, and I think that's what's cool about blending some of the new with the old, though, be able to put a little bit modern powertrain and make it more reliable, but still have that old-looking farm truck, He and I were talking about the red truck out there that we did the LS conversion and stuff like that, and he was just enamored. He was like, man, he goes, you need to just build more of these. He goes, this is the perfect combination of old, kind of beat up, usable farm truck that you're not afraid to put a load of bark dust or firewood in the back. If Grandma Fricker runs into it at the food mart with her big old cart and puts a dent in the side, you're like, whatever, we'll tap it out, we'll rub it, it'll be fine. And he goes, but then you can jump in it, and it's got fuel injection, and it's got automatic, it's got overdrive, it gets 20 miles to the gallon, and if something goes wrong, you can still plug in a little computer, and you can actually check the sensors and stuff. But it looks the part of the old truck. It has nice interior, modern drivetrain, but it's this old farm truck. He's like, dude, you need to just build more of these. And it was like, that kind of resonated, because that was one of the first ones we did, and we want to do that. But to hear that feedback, which we've gotten on the internet, but to hear it in person too, it's great. It's like, yeah, that's what we want to do with it. I'm glad that people appreciate the look of the old truck, but being able to go and actually drive it. So no matter where you're driving it, you're getting a carburetor. You go up in elevation, down in elevation, change humidity on these old trucks, and it's like you're going to tune fuel and air ratio and also like that. Not everybody's down with that. So you take one of these, a modern engine. I'm not going to specify which engine because everybody's got their own flavor, right? We use the Chevrolet motor, the LS. Everybody knows, not everybody, but a lot of people know what an LS is.
Yeah.
Aluminum small block Chevy that comes in all the Tahoes and Suburbans and pickup trucks and stuff like that. You put that in there with an automatic transmission and stuff, and now you've got this fuel-injected modern engine that makes twice the horsepower that the old carburetor one did.
Still gets good fuel
Still
economy.
gets good fuel economy. It's got a check engine light, so if something goes wrong, you got to plug it in and find out what's going wrong, and you can do that. But it still looks like the old farm truck that you drove on the ranch back in the day. It doesn't lose the soul again. But back to that, I guess that's my key word. And so far today is like the soul. It doesn't lose the soul of the truck. So I think it's cool. There is a market for the people that want the old original. In all honesty, if we bring a truck in here and we rescue something from somebody, and it's got the original drivetrain, and the motor's free, and it spins over, and we know it's going to run, I'm not going to pull it because it's not hard to bring it back to life. It's a bunch of parts, but it's not hard. As long as it doesn't have a window in the block, or it doesn't have a rod knock, or it's not mixing coolant and oil and stuff like that, yeah, I'll put it back together the way it is. We'll rebuild the carburetor, we'll do all that stuff, and I will happily put that back on the road. But like I was saying earlier, more people nowadays are really coming to us of like, hey, do you want to? Can we put a 12-valve Cummins in that? Can we put an LS in that? I want everything that you're doing there, but I don't want the carbureted motor anymore. And so for us, it's like, okay, we gotta kind of adapt and start changing and keep doing that stuff, and that's cool. It's fun. It's just learning something new, And I think it's great to be able to still preserve the truck. We have, as you guys have seen, we kind of have a look on all these trucks. We have the skinny, tall tires. We have the steel wheels. We do the dog dish factory hubcaps. It really, it looks like it rolled out of the 70s, and that's, I have trucks out there that have to have aftermarket wheels and tires. I have trucks out there that have modern bumpers and lights and stuff. We've done that too. But what we do the most of is really trying to just keep the heritage of the truck and what it looked like back in the day, with just a little bit of modernness.
Yeah, a little update. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for somebody out there that's like looking at international, what are some things that they need to look for?
Number one is rust, because every one of them has somewhere. So I'll give you a couple examples, but rust would be the number one thing. So one of the things the International did poorly was they did not do very much at all, if any, on some of these trucks of rust prevention. They will tell you, old timers, guys that I talk to that are like in their 70s and 80s and stuff, maybe they worked at the plant, maybe they worked at a dealership back in the day. I've had multiple ones tell you they would start rusting before they left the factory sometimes, because some of the inner fenders and inside the cowls and stuff, they would literally paint over bare metal and they wouldn't even primer them just to get them out the door.
Wow.
And they would literally start to surface rust in the parking lot before they went on the train to go to the dealership. So that was a major downfall, one of the downfalls of International, I feel like. And so if you look at many of the restoration shops, there's a lot of guys that do Scouts. Scouts are really hot right now. We don't do a lot of Scouts, mainly for that reason, just because there's a lot of guys that do it and do it really good. But if you look at those guys and they do the, I hate the cliche thing, frame off, because you're not taking the frame off, you're taking the body off. It's a body off frame restoration. It's not a frame, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but when you're doing that, when you're taking the body off the frame and doing a full resto, you'll see those guys pull the truck completely apart, sandblast everything, straighten all the panels. Well, as it goes back together, especially on Scouts and Travelals and stuff, they'll do Line X, Raptor liner, whatever your undercoat of choice is, and they'll line all the insides of the fenders. Everywhere that's going to get covered before they put a body panel on that's going to have paint, they'll line it. Primer, Raptor liner, Line X, bed liner, whatever it ends up being, it all goes on as they put the truck back together, because they know if they don't, it'll be right back there again in 10 or 15 years. So once they get done to that level, they really will last another 50, 60, 70 years, because that was really the biggest thing that killed these trucks was the rust. The other thing you want to look at is, I always tell everybody, go open every cap and pull every stick on the drivetrain. Meaning, if it has oil in it, if you pull the cap off and it's got coolant, you check the brake reservoir and it's got some brake fluid, and you pull the dipstick on the tranny and it's got a little bit of tranny fluid, battery's dead and it won't turn up. It's gonna run. Now, if it doesn't have an air cleaner on it and the carburetor's been exposed to the mud daubers and the mice and the rats for however long, the radiator cap you take off, it's bone dry, you pull the dipstick out and there's barely a drop on the end, yeah, you're probably in a bit of an uphill battle, you know. Derek from Vice Grip will always tell you, Vice Grip Garage, another big YouTuber, you guys know who he is, he'll take the fan or the belts and try and spin the motor, by hand, do the old Manuel style. And as long as that fan and the belts and the pulleys will spin, well, the motor's free. If the motor's free, especially on an International, you got to remember, these are tractor motors.
Yeah.
It's going to run. See, we've been doing this since 2019. I think Kevin and I have probably resurrected 300 or 400 of these trucks, I'm sure. And I bet in the 300 or 400, we've had 3, maybe 5 that the motor was like locked up and wouldn't come back to life.
Do you think that was probably just from the previous owner? Maybe that was the reason why it got parked?
Yeah, either that or air cleaner was left off and the hood wasn't on and it rained and the carburetor, moisture got in it, or the radiator cap was off and it had water in it and it froze and it expanded and it blew and it cracked the block, or the freeze plugs fell out, or it was neglect. But I can tell you, literally out of like 300 or 400 trucks, probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 of them, we were not able to save the engine. Every single one of them else, we were actually able to resurrect the motor and put it back on the road. No matter how long it was sitting, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, these things are super resilient. So look for rust, check all the fluids. If it's got fluids in it and it doesn't have a whole ton of rust in it, it's probably worth saving. If it's been painted multiple colors, they're probably trying to hide something.
Yeah.
You can flick it or you can tap it with a magnet and find the Bondo,
Tone pitch.
Yeah,
drop
just
stuff.
you knock on it different areas. Part of it sounds like wood, part of
Yeah.
it sounds like metal.
Yeah, it's
You're like, oh, we got Bondo.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would just, those are probably the main things. They all rust in really the same areas. They rust around the windshield, they rust in the floors, they rust in the body mounts, they rust in the wheel wells. Internationals were famous for being farm rigs because they were sold at the tractor dealership with the tractors side by side. That was one of the things International did really well, is like they put the trucks and the Scouts right next to the tractors and the mowers, and you walked in to get your new tractor and you're like, oh honey, I guess we need a new station wagon. Well, we'll just buy a travel all. They have them here at the dealership, just get one of these. But because of that, they were used on farms and ranches so much. A lot of mud packed in the wheel wells, a lot of mud packed around the fuel tanks and inside the fender wells and stuff like that. And then that mud would stay after you washed the outside of the truck.
If they washed it.
If they washed it. Then you would drive through a puddle when it rains, and it would wick up the moisture in the mud, and then it would start pushing through the metal. And it does that for a couple decades. And that mud never gets out. Every time it gets moisture and gets wet in there, it just starts putting, and so they would just rust out the wheel wells around the bottom of the bodies and stuff just from material sitting there.
Yeah.
And they're not, Internationals are not the only ones that did that. Ford,
Right.
Chevy, everybody did it.
Yep.
But I mean, just from what we see, that is one of the common things. And I think it's just because most of those farmers got a dirt road to their house, gravel road to their house. They're feeding cows, they're bucking hay, they're chopping wood, and it's not on a freaking paved road.
Yeah. And you clean it out once, and by the afternoon it's dirty again. So why?
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Yeah, I'll wash it when it rains. That's what a lot of them always say. I'll just wash it when it rains.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, man, really? And that's how they did it.
Yep.
And a lot of times they were parked for really silly reasons too. They would break a distributor or they'd break a starter or whatever. They just park it out behind the barn and go get a different rig, and
Yeah,
then forget about it for 20 years. And you go to get it, and the grandson or the granddaughter, they have no idea it was parked. We get it back home and like put a starter and a battery and change the oil, and it's like, it runs. Why did they park this?
Yeah.
So it can be the simplest thing. It really can. It can be catastrophic too. We've had catastrophic too. So, but the stories behind them is always the best part. I think it really is.
So yesterday we got to spend a little bit of time going and getting food, and one of the things I really love about you, I've learned about you, is kind of switching modes here, is you're a family man. You're very, you take a lot of pride in your kids and your boys. They're impressive, man. Like, we watched one of your boys today tearing apart a door to make money, for his truck that he's building.
His parts truck that he bought.
Yeah, I mean,
with his money.
yeah. So yesterday it was really cool to kind of hear, you're raising your boys to be men and to work for the things that they have. And I that's really awesome. Like, so was your dad and your grandpa, did they really instill that? It sounds like your grandpa did from the earlier
Grandpa did
stories.
for sure. My dad and mom, my mom was a teacher. My dad was a salesman for an industrial bearing and coupling company. So when the height of my dad's career in the valley in Oregon is when the logging industry was massive. Logging is what built Oregon. And so my dad worked for a company that was called McGuire Bearing, and they sold bearings and the pulleys and the pillow blocks and the belt drives and everything that would put a sawmill together, and as well as machine shops and all. It wasn't just the logging industry, but the logging industry was the bulk of his business. So he worked 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, smoked Vantage 100 cigarettes, like a carton a week. I mean, just smoked like crazy because he's a salesman. He's on the road all the time. Mom's a school teacher. So the beginning of my childhood, I spent at Grandma and Grandpa's every day till I went to kindergarten because they needed a babysitter. And I also was an only child. So this is that part of the story where you kind of like reveal yourself a little bit. Both my parents were type 1 diabetics. My mom's still alive. I say were because my dad passed away. My mom's still alive. And they made the choice that they wanted to have kids. And back then, so this is back in the 70s, medical technology is not what it is today. Doctors basically looked at him and said, okay, everything's good. You're both diabetic. You're probably going to give your kid diabetes. That was the theory back then. Probably not true nowadays. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but that was the mentality. And so their selfless choice was, we're not going to have a child, we're going to adopt a child because we don't want to give them diabetes. they had me, and they got me at birth. I was, it was a planned deal. And after having one child, my mom and my dad both working all the time, both full time, both, they're like, we can't have more than one. We're just gonna have to have one. So I was the only child. I was adopted. Didn't know I was adopted till I was like 6 or 7, but they did tell me. And which I'm proud of it. It's not something I'm not ashamed of it or like that, but it defines you because as an adult now I look back and go, yeah, as a child, I had to wrestle the fact that my birth parents abandoned me. That's not really,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean. Like that, as a kid, it's a lot. So that made me a little bit of a troublesome kid, I guess. Throughout my childhood, I did get in trouble at school. My mom and dad got called from time to time. I'd be the kid that kind of wanted to make a joke in class and have people like me and stuff like that. Kind of be, that the kid that stood out, I guess you would say. But and my grandpa was really good about it. My dad was not an emotional, physical guy. Like, he loved my mom and put my mom on a pedestal, and she was his queen and his princess, and he would do anything for his mom. But like, he wasn't a hugger. He wouldn't say I love you a lot and stuff like that. He kind of just, I knew how he felt about me. I always did. I never worried about it. But that stuck with me later on in life. And so like you're kind of talking about like what, raising my kids and stuff like that. My kids, my boys and I, anytime we leave, like tonight, Casey gave Nathan a ride home to his mom's house because I was doing this. And he just casually walks out the door and looks at me and gives me a hug, goes, love you, and just gets in the car and leaves. That's our normal, like that's how we've done it always. We hang up the phone, I say I love you. Anytime we leave each other, we say I love you. And to a lot of people, maybe it's not a big deal, But for someone that grew up with parents that never did that, I wanted to make sure my kids did do that so that someday when they have kids, God willing that they'll have kids, they'll do that and their kids will understand it. Because I think it's something that's lost. I think that emotional part of it. And the one thing that my dad did teach me a lot of, and you were talking about like, where did you get the work ethic or, whatever. It came time for me to get a car and get my driver's license and stuff. And, cars like independence. It's like I can go on a date with my girlfriend. I can go work. I can go to 7-Eleven and get a Slurpee, and I don't have to ask my parents because I got a car. So when you're a boy and you're like turning 16, it's like, man, I got to get a car. My dad's like, well, you better get a job. Because I went to a high school where a lot of kids mom and dad just be like, hey, I'll buy you a car. Here, what do you want? You want a Mustang? You want a Jeep? If you're a car kid, you're watching car shows. We all had a poster on the wall of some exotic car that we thought we were going to get. I had the Lamborghini Countach, the red one with the gold wheels. That was my poster. I always never had one.
Many
Probably,
of us had that
probably
poster.
never will, but
Hummer 1911.
there you go.
Yeah.
And so I was saying to my dad, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get a car and I want to be able to drive when I'm 16. He's like, well, you better get a job. And I was just like, okay. Like I going to work, and I saw my parents work. They worked hard, and I saw that. So I got a job and I worked, and it wasn't save up your money and I'll match it. It's like, get a job and pay for your car. And I'm not opposed to like, hey, if you're going to save up your money, I'll match whatever you get and whatever, that type of deal. But so as a kid, I learned that from my dad. It was just like, you want to get something, you got to go get a job, you got to earn money, you got to take that money and you got to go buy it. And if you buy it and you break it, you better have some more money to fix it or it's going to sit there, Oh, and by the way, if you have bad grades, I'm not paying your insurance, Yeah. So fast forward here, 35 years, or I don't want to date myself, but quite a few years later, my boys are coming into that. And my oldest son, he bought a little Toyota pickup when he was 14. Yeah, 14. Found it on Facebook Marketplace. He had money from working, and this was before he had a job working like for a company. He worked for me, split firewood, did chores around the property, and saved up money. And it wasn't a lot of money. We didn't spend a lot of money on the first truck was like $1,000. But he bought that truck, didn't have a driver's license, fixed it up, got it nice. We did all the mechanicals. He then subsequently did get a job. I was taking him to and from work in his first year before he had his license. And he got that truck running. We took his permit test, and he used that to learn how to drive for a year. And he got his driver's license, and 3 days after he got his driver's license, he put on Facebook Marketplace, flipped it, sold it, and went and bought himself a Dodge Cummins diesel. I was like, where'd you learn that from? You know? And so in a world where all his buddies have a new pickup or a new Jeep or a new car or whatever, his joke with his other friends that have bought their own cars, like, yeah, got daddy's money's car, you know, just using daddy's money. And it's real. It's like, you know, and they've learned, both my boys have learned through this process that when a parent, and this is going to piss off the internet a little bit, but this is my feeling. When a parent buys a kid a car, and a parent gives a kid a gas card, and a parent pays for a kid's cell phone, and a parent pays for a kid's insurance, someday when they have to do it on their own, they're going to not know what to do with it, nor are they going to respect or take care of it. If you look at any kid that has everything given to them, as much as the parents want to make sure they have the best life possible, you look at a kid that's given a car and given all stuff like that, they trash it. Every one of them. I mean, I've never seen, and I'm not saying they're not out there, because I'm sure they are. I've never seen a kid around here that was given a vehicle that treated it nice.
I haven't earned it.
They haven't earned it. They don't know what it means to not have it if it breaks, or if it's taken away, or if it's wrecked, or you know.
Or what
whatever.
the cost is to fix it when that happens.
Right, blow an engine and their parents, you know, fork over the 8 or 10 grand for a new diesel engine. They don't see the money. They don't know. They don't know that. So my boys learned that they got to get a job. They got to pay for their own stuff. I do pay for their insurance, but I only pay for their insurance if they maintain a 3.5 GPA. If they drop below 3.5, they have to pay their own insurance, or they don't drive. So that's the deal. And they have to have that for sports too. So it kind of goes coincides. But I'm proud to say that both of them bought their first rigs, fixed them up, sold them, and they both have subsequently bought other rigs. My oldest son bought a Dodge Cummins. My younger son bought a Ford, OBS Ford. You saw that.
Yeah.
And he's almost 15, so that'll be his truck when we get it done. And that was not a match deal purchase on either one of those. That was, they earned it and they bought it. And they knew they couldn't buy the $20,000 truck because they didn't have $20,000. They had to buy the $500 or $700 or $1,000 truck and make it a little better and flip it and get a little more money and then move up. And I didn't teach them that, but they watched it. And when they watched it and they learned it, they were like, that's what I'm going to do. And they did. And it's, as a father, it's one of the coolest things to ever see. Like, you didn't tell them to do it, but they did it, and they did it, and they figured out that it worked, and then they did it again, and they're like, oh man, I like this. This is what I'm doing, man. I'm going to go earn some money. I'm going to get me a truck, you know, or a car, whatever it is. Yeah. Could be a bicycle, you know. Depends on what your child is into, you know. So for that reason, my dad definitely taught me that, and I taught my boys that, and they kind of shared that with you. I shared it with you, but you talk to them too. You know what's going on. Man. Mm-hmm. And so that part as a dad is pretty cool. You know, I feel like kids. There's a lot of kids these days that could use some of those lessons. You know, we live in that internet device world. You know, and if we could get some kids away from that, I think they'd be doing a lot better. But you know, not here to preach.
Yeah. But it's a good methodology. It's a good philosophy, and it works.
Yeah. I've always told both the boys, I'm like, I'm your dad. I love you. I'm your friend. But at the end of the day, some days you're going to like me, and some days you're going to hate me. But my job is to raise you to be the best man that I can make you be, because someday I won't be here, and you're not going to be able to figure it out if I don't give you the tools. So listen to what I have to say. Get mad at me if you want. Hopefully someday you'll respect what I said or whatever. But I need to give you the tools to go be the best man you can be. You can be a husband, you can be a father, you can be a friend, you can be an employee. And someday I'm not going to be there to teach those things to you, so whatever I give you right now are the tools you're going to have to go out into that world and hopefully become a good person, you know. So I like being their friend, I like being their buddy, but sometimes I have to be their dad and I have to be the hard ass, and you know, that's tough. I can tell you a funny story about that too, because I'm a storyteller. So my oldest son, the one that got the Cummins, Nick, he, in Oregon, I don't know what this is like in all different states. In Oregon now, one of the laws is when you turn 16, for the first 6 months of your driver's license, you can only have a family member or parent or whatever in the car, nobody else. You can't have a buddy, you can't have a neighbor, it doesn't matter. It can only be a family member, or it might be somebody over like 25. You know, I think, I didn't look that part. But Point being is you can't take your buddies to lunch. Okay, when you're in high school, you go out to lunch every day like that. You get your driver's license. I mean, I don't know about you guys. You probably
Oh, yeah.
Like let's go to Dairy Queen, let's go Burger King, let's go Taco Bell. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
You get 45 minutes to leave school and go. So my son, even though I told him not to, I said don't. He went to lunch one day. It's only like, I don't know, 3 weeks or 4 weeks after he got his license. Want to take his girlfriend to lunch. So he took his girlfriend to lunch. Well, there was a little snow on the ground that day, and when he came to school in the morning, he came to school in two-wheel drive because it was dry out, and it snowed during the day. And when he pulled out of the parking lot, there's a police officer at the school officer, whatever. He's a cop, but he works at the school. Well, Nick spun the tires a little bit because he was in two-wheel drive. Got a little roost, and then stopped, put him four-wheel drive, and then kind of drove out of the parking lot. Well, the cop happened to look and go, okay, there's a girl in the car. And he spun his tires, and he's in the parking lot, which is not safe. So he pulled him over, right outside the school parking lot. And he's asked for his license registration, told him what he did, and all that stuff like that. And then he asked who the girl was. He said, okay, well, Mr. Palmer, you've only had your license for 3 weeks, and this young lady here should not be in your vehicle. Do you know that? And he's like, yes, sir. You knew he was like busted. Now, he got a warning. He did not get a ticket. The guy was nice. He got a warning. But I told Nick, I said, that's it, dude. That's your pass. Like, you got pulled over. Cop knows who you are. You're in the system now. Like, you have got to not, you can't be doing that. And so I think it was about a month later, it was not the cop, but he thought he could get away with taking his girlfriend to lunch again.
Oh, boy.
Now, he wasn't seen by policemen. He wasn't reckless driving. He didn't do anything dumb in the parking lot. It wasn't a teacher like that. But one of my friends, who's also a parent, was driving down the road and went, took a picture and texted it to me and said, here's Nick and his girlfriend going to lunch. Just thought you'd know. Because I told Nick, I said,
That's your only pass.
it's your only pass. And this is a small town, dude.
Yeah.
Other people are going to see you. Like, you better hope a cop doesn't see you, and don't do it. He said, no, Dad, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. He did it. Didn't get caught by the cops, so he didn't get pulled over. Didn't even know that I knew. They texted me the picture, and it's at lunchtime, so I waited till lunch hour was over, and then I went to the school with my truck and trailer and repoed the truck and brought the truck home.
Yes!
Didn't tell him you
him.
picked the truck up.
Nope. And then I went to the school at 3 o'clock and sat in the parking lot in my truck and waited for him and his brother. I had to pick his brother up anyway. Waited for them to come out, and he came out and he's like, "Where's my truck?" I'm like, "It's at the house." "Why is it at the house?" "Because you took your girlfriend to lunch." "How'd you know about that?" And I said, "Because there's another parent in town that knows it's not okay and sent me a picture." He's like, "Are you serious?" I mean, he just like ghost white.
Oh,
I go, "Dude, there's eyes watching you all the time. You can't do it, man."
you can't hide.
And so then I kept he couldn't drive for 2 weeks. I kept the truck for 2 weeks. And this has been a couple months now. Ever since then, we are on the straight and narrow. All his buddies knew about it. Like, the picture was passed around of somebody took a picture of me loading his truck in the parking lot, and it got passed around on Snap. I'm not on Snapchat, but all the kids use Snapchat. They passed that picture around like, here's Palmer's dad repoed his truck, dude. Check this out. Like, and they're sharing it on social media and stuff like that.
Brutal.
So it was kind of a laugh amongst everybody, but all the parents are like, dude, that's the damn coolest thing I've ever seen, man. He's like, you made a statement. And I go, what? Told him I'm not standing for it,
Yeah.
And it did. It worked. Like he admitted his fault. He knew he knew he's busted, and he's got to go till June 6th before he can have someone in the car, and other than his brother, he can have his brother. And I told him, like, dude, how bad would it suck? Because if he gets pulled over by a cop, and you get a ding on your then it's hits your insurance, and it's like a legit ticket at that point, even though it's just a person in the car. Yeah. I go, how bad would it suck if that happened? And then the very first summer that you have your driver's license and you have your pickup, and we live in this beautiful place where you can go camping, hunting, fishing, and you could have taken your girlfriend camping for the weekend or go dirt biking, and you can't go because you got to hitch a ride with one of your buddies. How bad would that suck? He's like, It's not happening, Dad. It's not happening. He's like, I'm so, he like that night when I got home after I picked him up from school, that night after dinner, he was crying and he was sorry and he was apologetic. I mean, he like, I could tell it hit him.
He learned
Yeah.
it.
And the reason I did it, I was pissed. I'm like, dude, I go, you're basically slapping me in the face without slapping me in the face. You went out and drove your truck and took your girlfriend out, and you didn't think I was going to find out. I did find out, and that's just like telling me you're being disrespectful, dude. He's like, no, I know. I'm so sorry. Like it worked. And you know, when you're in the heat of it with as a parent, you don't think about, is it going to work? Am I doing the right thing? It's just like, I'm pissed. I'm going to make a statement. And so my statement was repo the truck and take it home. Yeah, and it worked. And all of his friends saw that and learned about it, and they all were like, oh crap, Palmer's dad's like watching us like a hawk out here. We got to be careful what we're doing, you know? So it was funny, but it was, I think it's something he'll always remember. It's good. It was a good learning experience for both of them. Yeah. And I told Nathan, I'm like, hey, dude, you're getting a free pass to watch all this crap right now. You know exactly what not to do. He's like, oh, no, I'm not freaking doing it. He's an idiot. I'm not doing what this dumbass is doing. Like, I go, you get a free lesson. You don't even have to do something wrong and find out what's wrong. You're watching it happen. He's like, yeah, no, I know.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, dude. I'm gonna sail right through this deal.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time tonight. This has been an absolute riot. We've really, really loved
I'm glad you guys are here.
being a part of this. And, and thanks for hosting us. Thanks for providing the venue for us. This has been an absolute blast, and I'm excited to.
Well, I know every time you come here, the last couple of years with your wife and kids, how much you hate it here. You know, you keep coming back, but you're just like, gosh, wish it was nicer. Wish the weather was better. You know.
Oh shoot! Well, we'll be back soon.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for being a part of the podcast, and we'll do it again soon.
Cool.
For those that are don't know where to find you, where can they get you out?
Yeah.
Online.
So on the socials, on the interwebs, on the out in the world of space, website is I call it the business card, kind of the landing page. Mm-hmm. It's not as accurate as the socials, but the website is 406garage.com. That usually has inventory. It's got a link to our YouTube site, our Instagram, so that has phone number, email, and stuff like that. Instagram, 406 Garage, and YouTube, 406 Garage. I have a Facebook account, but it's just me, Ben Palmer. You can find me on there. I'm probably not going to accept your friend request because I've got like 5,000 people on there already.
Maxed, right?
But I do post a lot of the truck stuff and things like that on the Facebook when I remember. I'll be honest, the most activity you'll see me on is Instagram and YouTube. And if you type in 406 Garage, thankfully I've got a good website guy and my SEO is usually at the top. Cool. You type in 406 Garage, I'm almost always the first thing that pops up. So you shouldn't have any trouble finding me on the interweb if you just type in the name. So.
Well, thank you. This is awesome. I hope a whole bunch of people come over to the channel. You're a good man. You're a great dad.
Great host.
You're awesome. This is fantastic.
I appreciate it. It's always fun having you guys. I look forward to the next time we get to do it again. So.
Absolutely.
Thanks again.
Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks.